I'm not Mitch Connor, and this Cato Institute article by John Mueller, for the most part, mirrors what I've been saying, that ISIS is not a threat to America or even to Western countries. Much backstory to this, but you can go through my videos if you want. Go back to Charlie Hebdo and how that was supposedly connected to terrorism, and that was bunked, that whole thing. But if you don't want to hear me read it, go to the link in the description. But also check out who John Mueller is. Look a little bit into him. I got his Wikipedia page here. His Cato Institute description. He's a senior fellow. He's a member of the Political Science Department, senior research scientist with the Mershon Center for International Security Studies at Ohio State University, leading expert on terrorism and particularly on the reactions, or overreactions, it often inspires. He is the co-author with Mark G. Stewart of the forthcoming book, Chasing Ghosts, The Policing of Terrorism, which will be published in October 2015. His last book, Terror, Security, and Money, Balancing the Risks, Benefits, and Costs of Homeland Security, also with Mark G. Stewart, was published in September 2011 by Oxford University Press. Other books from Mueller include Overblown, How Politicians and the Terrorism Industry Inflate National Security Threats and Why We Believe Them, and Atomic Obsession, Nuclear Alarmism from Hiroshima to Al-Qaeda. I can't find out if this guy's a Democrat or Republican or what, but it seems like a mostly smart guy. Just because he's with one of the think tanks doesn't necessarily mean he's in on the conspiracy, I'll give a parallel example of Jacques Ellul, who wrote two fantastic books called Propaganda and the Technological Society. The latter of which was translated at the recommendation of Julian Huxley of UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, which is kind of the propaganda center of the world. But see, Ellul was not on board with what Huxley was on board with. Huxley just cited his work as far as a synopsis of the development of technique and technology, which technique is basically the, in Ellul's mind, the self-perpetuating process leading to basically what we have today, which is, this whole New World Order garbage. But Huxley recognized Ellul's intelligence. Okay, Ellul wasn't a part of any conspiracy. He was a philosopher. He was a very smart man. Knew a lot about history, a lot about biblical scriptures, and a lot about the development of, from old days to modern day and how it developed. And he laid it out very succinctly. Very good book. I really like his writing, but it was recommended for translation because it was originally in French, and the guy who had it translated hadn't found anything on the subject. But Ellul had already covered the subject, and Huxley knew it. Anyway, interestingly, this guy is also into the history of dance, but yeah, he's made some TV appearances. These are some of the things he's written. But let's get to the meat of it. One of the most remarkable phenomenon over the last year is the way the Islamic State, the vicious insurgent group in Iraq and Syria, has captured the imagination of the public in Western countries. And as usual, officials in the media have fallen over themselves to respond with urgency. Americans have remained substantially unmoved by even worse human catastrophes in the past, such as genocide in Cambodia in the 1970s and in Rwanda in 1994, as well as sustained criminal predation in eastern Congo in the years after 1997. But following a set of webcast beheadings of Americans in the late summer and fall of 2014, some 60 to 70% of the American public now says ISIS presents a major security threat to the United States. Only 17% are advocating sending American ground troops to fight ISIS after it surprisingly routed American-trained and spectacularly ill-led Iraqi forces in Mosul, Iraq in June 2014. Which was, as far as I can tell, actually real, but these beheadings are not. And that's one big fault he has, and maybe there's a reason why he doesn't mention it, that maybe he's never actually seen them in full, and actually analyzed them. I don't know, maybe it's taboo in the world that he's in, I don't know. But nonetheless, however, the beheadings abruptly boosted that support to over 40%. For a while in February 2015, after the death of an American captive, Kayla Mueller, support spiked even higher to upwards of 60%. A similar phenomena has taken place in Europe, in the Czech Republic, for example. The public has come to view Islamic terrorism to be the country's top security threat, even though it has never experienced a single such episode. Outrage at the tactics of ISIS is certainly justified, but fear that it presents a worldwide security threat are not. And there's a link to a Washington Post article that you're welcome to go and read. I don't want to make the video too long. Its numbers are small, and it has differentiated itself from Al-Qaeda in that it does not seek primarily to target the far enemy, preferring instead to carve out a state in the Middle East for itself, mostly killing fellow Muslims who stand in its way. In the process, it has alienated virtually all outside support and, by holding territory, presents an obvious and clear target to military opponents. A year ago, the main fear was that foreign militants who had gone to fight with ISIS would be trained and then sent back to do damage in their own countries. However, there has been scarcely any of that. Actually, by the way, no, there hasn't been any of that, okay? Now, supposedly, with Charlie Hebdo and Mehdi Koulibaly, no, the street shooting outside of Charlie Hebdo was fake. The one photo shop with blood under the chair was, well, sorry, the one photo was photoshopped, the blood was. And there's evidence of photoshopping in the Mehdi Koulibaly case, and I honestly could never come to a conclusion whether that was real or not. There was something really wrong with it, and I couldn't figure it out, but you couldn't identify it as a Mehdi Koulibaly clearly enough. Anyway, in part, this is because, as Daniel Byman and Jeremy Shapiro have detailed in Brookings Institution's report, foreign fighters tend to be killed early. They are common picks for suicide missions, often become disillusioned, especially by infighting in the ranks, and do not receive much in the way of useful training for terrorist exercises back home. It might also be added that ISIS videos exultantly show foreign fighters burning their passports to demonstrate their terminal commitment to the cause. Hardly a good idea if they want to return. In May 2015, an audio message apparently from the leader of ISIS exhorted Muslims either to join the ISIS ranks in the Middle East or fight at home wherever they may be. There was nothing about training people to return home to wreak havoc. More recently, oh, by the way, that was al-Baghdadi, which he's probably an intelligence agent. That's another story. I'm not going to go there right now. More recently, the focus of fear has shifted from potential returnees to potential homegrown terrorists who might be inspired by ISIS's propaganda or example. However, ISIS could continue to be an inspiration even if it was weakened or destroyed. And as terrorism specialist Max Abrams notes, Lone Wolves has carried out just 2 of the 1,900 most deadly terrorist incidents over the last 4 decades. 2 out of 1,900. There's also been a trendy concern about the way ISIS uses social media. However, as Byman and Shapiro and others have pointed out, the foolish willingness of would-be terrorists to spill their aspirations and their often childish fantasies on social media has been, on balance, much to the advantage of the police seeking to track them. Now, that's actually not completely true, as I showed in was it Cartoon Wars on Imaginationland? One of the Cartoon Wars on Imagination. Sorry, no, Cartoon Wars on Erection Day videos, which were about the Muhammad cartoon contest shooting in Garland, Texas, a few months ago. Those tweets were fraudulent. Okay, between Albertani and Sharia is Light, which was supposedly why am I forgetting his freaking name? Whatever the black guy's name was that was supposedly killed there, there was no evidence of him being killed there. And there was, the other guy, what is it? I can't remember his name now either. The guy with the beard, Middle Eastern guy. Yeah, maybe him. Maybe, I'm not totally sure, but you'll see my conclusions in the video if you actually go and watch it. But nonetheless, there was no proof that those were actually valid twits, and there was evidence that the timing was off in them. Like one was put up like 3 hours beforehand. Was that Albertani? I can't remember exactly. It's in the video. I laid it out. Anyway, we could go on. However, ISIS's savvy use of social media and its brutality have had a major impact on two important American groups, public officials and the media. Senator Dianne Feinstein has insisted the threat ISIS poses cannot be overstated, effectively proclaiming hyperbole on the subject to be impossible, as columnist Dan Frumkin observes. Equally inspired, Senator James Inhofe, born before World War II, has extravagantly proclaimed that we're in the most dangerous position we've ever been in, and that ISIS is rapidly developing a method of blowing up a major U.S. city. That's one hell of a feat. I mean, even the atom bombs that supposedly blew up in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, well, they didn't blow up the whole city. I mean, that's not even possible. Supposedly, they can do a dirty bomb or oh, I know they can do chlorine bombs because that's what they were doing in Syria when they were known as the Free Syrian Army back in 2012. But just like I've been saying this whole time, they're just fear-mongering, and that's in essence what this guy's saying. And anyways, to go on, and on Michael Smirkonish's CNN program last weekend, former Homeland Security Chief Tom Ridge issued the evidence-free suggestion that the recent tragic killings in Chattanooga followed a directive from ISIS. The FBI admitted themselves, by the way, that there was no evidence of that. It's an assumption that especially, the Republican Party loves to use because they're the warmongering arm of, the two-party system. The Democrats are the social change arm. So they work in tandem, and talk shit about each other concerning, the Democrats are all anti-war supposedly, even though they do conduct wars. I mean, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, my God, they've done a lot in the sense of war, but they go about it in a different way and, and act like, oh, we're ending wars. All the while, they're they're instituting social change with help of the media and the Republican Party. They grow government just like the Democrat Party does through war and fear-mongering of war, appealing to the masculine side of the voting public. Anyway, to go on, the media have generally been more careful and responsible about such extrapolations. I don't know about that, but sometimes articles appear noting that some American and foreign intelligence officials think that the actual danger posed by ISIS has been distorted in hours of television punditry and alarmist statements by politicians. Yeah, television punditry, and that's the media. Even on the freaking radio, you should hear, if you don't already, like Rush Limbaugh, Michael Savage, and Mark Levin, for instance. I don't listen to Hannity, or I can't even stand Glenn Beck. That guy's a freaking retard. But not that the other three are that great, Savage is all right. I can stand to listen to him because he's at least got somewhat of an intellect. He's a pretty smart guy. Views I don't necessarily agree with all the time, especially the war on terror, but he's a good speaker for the radio. But anyway, but the media remain canny about weaving audience-grabbing references about the arrestingly diabolical ISIS into any story about terrorism. And there's the revealing slip of the editors at the Daily Beast, which recently published a thoughtful article entitled, "How ISIS's Attack America Plan is Working." The teaser for the article left out the word "how," inadvertently revealing precisely how ISIS has caused such unjustified alarm in this country. This article was from a week ago, July 23rd, but what just follows it up? ISIS is a bigger threat than Al-Qaeda, says Attorney General Loretta Lynch's terror group uses Twitter and social media to recruit members. Help us! ISIS is as strong as ever in Syria despite a year-long U.S.-led bombing campaign, and it could take a decade to drive them out of strongholds, claims CIA. Help us! Guess who caused the creation of the Islamic State and ISIS, which I do not say are the same thing at this point. People creating the fake vids are not the Islamic State. And you'll probably get that to a certain extent if you go down to the list below. of the links to the videos I've made analyzing those fake execution videos. Have a nice day.